They thought they broke me. They didn't know I was about to rise stronger than all of them. The living room smelled like burnt coffee and tension. My mother-in-law stood in the center of my house, arms crossed, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her silk blouse. She'd walked in without knocking, like she owned the place, like I didn't exist. "You're dead weight," she said, her voice cold and sharp. "My son deserves better than someone who can't even keep a clean house." I looked around. The house was spotless. I'd scrubbed the floors that morning until my knees ached. But she wasn't really talking about the house. She never was. My husband stood behind her, staring at his phone, silent. "Get out of my home," I said quietly, my voice shaking. She laughed, actually laughed. "Your home, sweetheart. This house will belong to my son soon enough. You're just borrowing it." I looked at my husband, waiting for him to defend me, to tell his mother she was wrong, to choose me for once. He looked up from his phone, sighed, and said the words that shattered me. "Maybe she's right." The room went silent, my chest tightened, I couldn't breathe. I turned and walked into the bedroom, closing the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I opened the drawer where I kept the house documents. The deed sat there, crisp and official, with my name on it. Mine, not his, not theirs. I stared at it for a long time, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. I decided right then, I'd sell the house, I'd take the money and disappear, I'd leave them all behind. The next morning I called a realtor. Her name was Patricia, and she sounded efficient and no-nonsense over the phone. She met me at a coffee shop downtown, away from the house, away from him. "So you want to sell," she said, flipping through her tablet. "The market's hot right now. You could sell fast if you price it right." "How fast?" "2 weeks, maybe less." I nodded, my mind racing. 2 weeks until freedom. But Patricia frowned, tapping her pen against the table. "There's one thing you should know. If your husband contests the sale, it could get complicated. Even if your name is on the deed, if you're married, he might have legal grounds to delay it." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Community property laws. Depending on the state, he could argue he has a stake in the sale." I felt the walls closing in again. Of course there was a catch. Before I could respond, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned to see my neighbor, Mrs. Caldwell, standing behind me with a concerned expression. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said gently, "but I overheard your conversation yesterday, the argument. I live next door." My face flushed. "I'm sorry you had to hear that." "Don't apologize," she said firmly. "But you're making a big mistake. Don't sell that house, not yet. Let me show you something first." Mrs. Caldwell invited me to her house that afternoon. She made tea, set out cookies, and sat across from me at her kitchen table. "20 years ago," she began, "my husband's family tried to take my property. They had lawyers, they had plans, they almost succeeded." "What did you do?" "I gathered information," she said, her eyes sharp. "I stopped acting in anger and started acting strategically. That's where your power is, not in running away, in knowing exactly what they're planning." She leaned forward. "Has your husband ever shown you what's in his mother's messages?" I shook my head. "Then that's where you start." That night I waited until my husband fell asleep. He'd left his old phone in the junk drawer, the one he'd replaced 6 months ago. I knew the password. He always used the same one. I opened his messages and scrolled to his mother's name. My heart pounded as I read. "She's getting harder to manage. Push her out slowly, make her feel like she's failing. Start with the bank account." I covered my mouth to keep from making a sound. They'd been planning this for months. The next morning I checked our joint bank account. Money had been disappearing, 500 here, 1,000 there. My husband had always brushed it off as unexpected expenses. I clicked through the transaction history. Every missing payment had been transferred to his brother's account. My hands shook. I took screenshots of everything. That afternoon the brother showed up at my door. He didn't knock, just walked in like he owned the place, just like his mother. "Heard you're thinking about selling," he said, smirking. I crossed my arms. "What's it to you?" "Just want to make sure you're making the right decision. Soon, this house will be in the family where it belongs." He said it so casually, so confident, like it was already done. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. He realized his mistake too late. Nothing, just family talk. But I'd already pulled out my phone and hit record. I sent the recording to my sister that night. She called me immediately. "Don't confront them yet," she said. "You're collecting evidence, keep going." The next day I searched my husband's desk. Tucked in the back of the bottom drawer was a manila envelope. Inside was a loan contract. My signature was on it. Except I'd never signed it. The forgery was sloppy. The handwriting was close but not quite right. The date was wrong too. I'd been out of town that week. I stared at it, anger bubbling up inside me. Then I started laughing, actually laughing. That's when my husband walked in. "What's so funny?" he asked, frowning. I held up the contract. "This." His face went pale. "We can explain," he said quickly. "It was just a precaution, in case we needed." "A precaution," I said, my voice sharp. "You forged my signature." He opened his mouth, then closed it. For once he had nothing to say. The next morning he tried a different approach. He brought me coffee in bed, apologized, said his mother had been putting pressure on him. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice soft. "I should have stood up for you, I will from now on." But I saw his phone light up on the nightstand. Did she fall for it, from his mother? I waited until he left for work, then I picked up his phone and typed a reply. "Yeah, she's selling the house." Her response came instantly. "Good, make sure she signs by tomorrow." I took screenshots and sent them to myself, then I deleted the messages. That afternoon, I met with a lawyer Mrs. Caldwell had recommended. His name was Mr. Brennan, and he had the kind of calm, steady presence that made you feel like everything would be okay. "You have enough evidence to bury them legally," he said after reviewing everything. "But I need to ask you something. Do you want justice or do you want revenge?" I thought about it for a long time, then I said both. He smiled. "Then here's what we're going to do." The plan was simple. I wouldn't sell the house. Instead, I'd secure it legally so they couldn't touch it. And I'd let them expose themselves. I called my husband that evening and told him I'd decided to move forward with the sale. He was relieved, too relieved. The next day I staged a fake home appraisal. The appraiser was a friend of Mr. Brennan's, in on the plan. My husband panicked the moment he saw the car pull up. Within an hour his mother was at the door shouting, "Stop her, she can't sell what doesn't belong to her." I stood calmly in the doorway. "Then who does it belong to?" She pointed at my husband. "My son deserves this house, he's worked for it." The appraiser, holding a clipboard, asked casually, "And how exactly has he worked for it?" She didn't notice the recording app open on his tablet. "We've been planning this for months. She doesn't deserve it. We forged." She stopped, but it was too late. Mr. Brennan discovered something even worse. My husband had used my credit to fund his brother's failed business, $50,000, all in my name. I had enough now, enough to file charges, enough to protect myself. I invited the whole family to dinner. They came eagerly, thinking I'd given in. At every seat I placed an envelope. "Before dessert," I said calmly, "check your envelopes." They opened them. Inside were legal notices, evidence of their fraud, copies of the forged documents, screenshots of their messages. My husband's face turned white. His mother started shouting, accusing me of destroying the family. "You destroyed yourselves," I said. My husband threatened divorce. I smiled. "I filed 3 weeks ago." The brother-in-law was arrested the next day. The forged loan had serious consequences. My husband realized he was next. He begged, cried, claimed his mother had pressured him. "You chose them over me every single time," I said. "Now live with that choice." He signed the divorce settlement quietly. When it was over, Mrs. Caldwell appeared at my door with news. She had a job opportunity, a partnership, a future. I stood in my house, the one I'd almost given away, and realized something. Sometimes revenge isn't destroying someone else. It's rebuilding yourself so beautifully that their loss becomes the real punishment.